Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. I'd like to welcome Anish Shah to the Reboot Chronicles. Anish is the Group CEO and MD of Mahindra Group, one of the largest and most admired multinational companies with businesses in 20 industries, which employ about 260,000 people in over 100 countries. With around 20 to 25 billion in annual revenue, the organization has a broad federation of companies across industry sectors, from cars, SUVs, trucks, motorcycles, technology, energy, and logistics to hospitality, real estate, financial services, and agriculture, even being the world's largest tractor company by volume. Under his leadership, Mahindra Group has been rebooting itself into a global growth and innovation machine, leading civic organizations across the globe and receiving the Economic Times Company of the Year award. Anish believes that purpose drives profits and has been honored with E&Y's Entrepreneurial CEO and Fortune India's Best CEO. Anish, it's good to see you.
Likewise, Dean. Pleasure being with you today.
So much to talk about. Love multinationals and federations of companies. And as a serial CEO, I often wonder, many of the CEOs we have on have a hard time managing one company in one sector. So we all want to know, Mahindra has so many leading brands in so many sectors, from IT services to vacation ownership. It's a really widespread. So how do you manage such a diverse portfolio, and what's it like?
So, Dean, I'm going to really talk about three things on that, which is purpose, people, and discipline. For us, as you mentioned, purpose is the key focus for us, and profits follow. And often many will ask me, but your investors will want profits. So why are you talking about purpose first? And for that, let me actually go back to 1945 when we were founded. Our founders put an advertisement in the Times of India talking about the principles under which this company was being formed. And it
Uh,
talked about dignity of labor. It talked about opposing antisocial trends. Neither caste, nor creed, nor color shall come in the way of a meritocracy. Today, it would read as an ESG manifesto, but our DNA was around purpose. And that is what's translated into a RISE philosophy. And when we talk about managing, it starts with having a common vision, and a common vision is to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders to enable them to rise, in the lives of our communities, in the lives of our employees, in the lives of our customers. And that purpose is a common message for all our leaders and all our associates, that this is how we will operate. And that sets for us the culture and the direction in many ways. That then translates to a strategy from a business standpoint. And as we outline that strategy along with purpose, we enable a clear path. The second aspect is around people. Across the group, it's obviously the most important asset. And we spend a lot of time on who we bring in. Having the right people come into the group is important because they have to be a fit from a culture standpoint, they have to be fit from a purpose standpoint. Uh, how we groom them as leaders, the opportunities we provide. And that's one advantage we have as we work across 20 industries, to be able to give different experiences, to have people go out of the comfort zone, to have career paths for them. And that's where I spend a lot of time on, is get the right people in the right places. As that happens, the businesses do very well by themselves. And the third is a discipline. Uh, it's a discipline of capital allocation, ensuring that we're allocating capital to businesses that will give us the returns. It's a discipline of having the right level of ambition in each of our businesses. Because if we don't think big, we're not going to achieve something that's big. It's a discipline of execution. and what we call operational excellence, of having the focus on the right metrics, both input and output metrics. And as we put all of these things together, purpose, people, and discipline, that's what really enables us to perform well. And we've been able to deliver outsized returns to investors. Our market cap is up 10x over the last 5 years. And even if I go back over the last 25 years, we've been the best performing stock in the Nifty 50, which is India's premier index. And for
Yeah.
us, we firmly believe that it's been our purpose and our people that have enabled us to deliver results.
Yeah, and those of you listening, he's way above the Nifty 50. I mean, the two lines are there's a big gap in there. I love that, and I love how purpose, people, discipline goes back almost to 1945. I mean, maybe they didn't have it all written down just like that, but it's it's hard to keep that cultural groundedness. I mean, you've got a quarter of a billion people that are working for you, and so what's that like? Maybe take us through the companies and the different cultures, and the last thing I'll just say about that is what I when we reboot companies, it's around people, platform, and passion. So very similar. I like the word discipline because I'll ask you about this a little bit later, but how do you get people to think big is where I'm going with this line of questioning. But yeah, maybe walk us through the business and how does all that resonate in each of the groups?
So, Dean, you're absolutely right on how do you get people to think big. So, we'll come back to
Yeah,
that uh, uh, at a later
everyone
stage.
wants to know.
And that is not an easy thing to do. But coming back to your primary question, um, we have four large businesses: automobile, farm, IT services in Tech Mahindra, and financial services in Mahindra Finance. Our auto business is very well positioned. We have 23% market share in SUVs in India, and we play in about half the SUV market. So, in effect, where we play, we've got a 45 to 50% market share. We
Yeah,
have,
I mean, in India, you're number one in SUVs and LCVs and tractors,
that's right,
clearly.
in LCVs, we have a 51% market share.
Wow.
In tractors, a 44% share. In electric three wheelers, 45% share. So, we have a significant leadership in the markets we play in. And for auto, therefore, our approach is to create now products that are world class that can help us go international in a much bigger way. And for us to drive the path to EV in India, which we think is going to be much faster than what most people would believe. Our tractor business uh, is again focused on international growth because our international share is much lower than what we have in India. But there again, it's creating the right set of products for farmers to help their lives get much easier and to drive much greater productivity. Tech Mahindra and Mahindra Finance are both businesses that are very strong in their fields, agile and growing at a rapid pace now. And beyond these four, we've got what we call our growth gems. Growth gems are businesses that today are worth half a billion to $1 billion each. And we are essentially targeting a 5x growth in the next 5 years for these businesses. And they operate in hospitality. We've got the number one timeshare business in India, which we're now repivoting to go beyond timeshare into a larger space of hospitality. We've got a very large logistics business in India, which is India's most trusted logistics player for integrated logistics, especially for large and medium sized companies and for e commerce. Our real estate business is one that's growing very rapidly now. Renewables, we've got a partnership with Ontario Teachers and Inwit, which is India's largest renewables Inwit. Aerostructures, again, a business that's growing very rapidly, and a few others. So we play today in 70% of India's GDP. And we believe that with where India is positioned, we should be able to grow at a much faster pace and be able to deliver value to our shareholders, again, led by purpose.
In the real estate side, I think you're called life spaces. You're doing multiple dwelling units, high rise, mostly, or
Yes, mostly high rise because India largely is high rise, especially in our larger cities. But we're also focused on creating communities where our buildings are net zero, and that's something that we've done with a lot of science that comes into our buildings in terms of how they're positioned, how do we use less energy in the buildings, how some of it can be energy that's recycled or rather renewable, and that's something that we're proud of our life spaces business for.
Yeah, it's an industry first, the net zero residential project. The the um, NBFC, the non-bank financial services, is that it seems to be booming over there. A lot of competition, a lot of
It,
startups in that too.
it is, and there we are again, the largest in rural and semi-urban India, and it's a space that we've created and we've been the leaders in for many years. Also established a very strong brand and trust amongst our customers.
So what when you look at your auto business, it's you have a lot of different brands, both autos, motorcycles, SUVs, EVs. Is it a group of companies? What's the auto strategy? Separate from trucks and tractors.
So our strategy is to be a leader by a significant margin in every space we play. Uh, it's essentially within one company, but there are some that are 100% subsidiaries and a couple where we've got external investors as well. So for our electric business, we have BII, which is British International Investment, and Temasek, both as private equity investors, both have roughly a 3 to 4% stake. And in our last mile mobility, which is electric three wheeler business, we have IFC and the India Japan Fund as investors, and
Right.
collectively they have a 20% stake.
And your EV technology seems to be, I don't know, I'll say world class. How do you feel about competing with all the big dogs? China obviously is hot on your heels there. How do you feel about competition and your position and expanding globally with not just EVs, but cars? You've got some pretty cool technology there.
So, Dean, we feel very good about that with the products we have today and the feedback we've got from customers. We are extremely well positioned. And let me just go through the launches we've had over the last 3 years. Um, the first launch we had 50,000 bookings in the first 3 days.
Wow.
In the second launch, we had again 50,000 bookings, this time in the first 3 hours. The third launch we had 100,000 bookings in the first hour. And in the fourth one, we had 176,000 again in the first hour, which essentially was a sales value of $4.2 billion. And that's been the quality of products that we rolled out, and the uh, brand that's gone beyond these products, and the customer passion for our products has been just amazing, and that's really helped us grow very significantly in the auto business.
So when you look at the growth gems, it seems like it's a strategy of expand these gems that we have versus, you know, in the States they call it the land and expand strategy versus let's acquire, let's do a build by borrow analysis. And we still need to get into a couple more industries. So when you look out, second half of this decade, do you see yourself conquering other sectors, or do you feel like you have enough to just expand and grow the company? I mean, your market cap's been 10x, your revenue's been going through the roof. It's an amazing growth story. But yeah, I'm just curious how you look at the next 5 years.
So we've achieved the 10x market cap in the last 5 years,
Yeah.
organic growth. And therefore, we firmly believe that we've got to operate very well, drive organic growth, and that is, in some ways, the best way to get results. In addition, we will look at acquiring companies, which in some cases may be a bolt on acquisition within the sectors we play in. In some cases, maybe an adjacency to the sector we play in. And possibly in one, maybe two cases, look at something outside our sectors. But we have tremendous opportunity and potential within where we play today. And that's really where we are focused, because while I mentioned we play in 70% of India's GDP, within that 70%, there's still a lot of white space that we have.
Yeah.
And that's the easiest way to get in and grow our businesses.
When your a lot of your roots are in the tractor business, in the states, that seems to be more of a global business, but obviously you're the leader in India. Um, what's that business like? And you're competing with some of the you know the companies that's all they do, like a Caterpillar and a John Deere, or you view yourselves in a different kind of space.
So we manufacture tractors less than 100 horsepower. And there are certain markets around the world which only use those tractors because it's smaller land parcels. India is one of them.
Got it.
Uh, we compete with all the global majors, John Deere, Kubota, CNH, everyone's here in India and have been here for many, many years. And despite that, we've kept a market share of 44%. In fact, we've been growing that share over time. And that goes back again, Dean, to your question on even on auto. We've competed with all the global majors in India for the last 25 years. We've been written off as dead many times.
Yeah.
Uh, but we've always come back stronger. And that's where we feel that uh, competition actually helps us get better. And that's happened on the auto side, that's happened on the tractor side. So it's positioned us in India very well. Our next step is to be able to do that in various global markets. In the US, we have done well in tractors. We are number three in again the space we play in, which is less than 100 horsepower. And in Brazil, we are growing very rapidly. In Turkey, we have a strong position. In Japan, we've got a good position. So we're looking at multiple international markets to be able to do much better there.
Yeah, in the states, Kubota, they no one had ever heard of them before, and they started doing kind of consumer advertising, and so it became a brand name here. So it's interesting to see how some kind of, I'll just call them B2B, smaller players have kind of pushed in the consumer side, like ATVs, and you're in some of that space as well. How do you feel about the U.S. in terms of your overall strategy as a group and so much business over there?
Uh, I think the US is a very important market for us. I've personally lived in the US for 14 years, so I've seen that country and have obviously a great amount of love for the US. It's a market also where one has to be at the top of the game to come in and do well. And in tractors, we've been able to do that because we believe we have the best products in the world in the space we play in and offer the maximum value to customers. In auto, we will come to the US, but we will come at a time when we are confident we can go in and take 20% market share. Because we're going to come in with products that are going to be outstanding at that time in terms of quality, in terms of value for the customer. And that is going to be a journey that we will probably take a few years down the road because we need to, in some ways, conquer other markets around the world first before we come to the US. It's the largest, the most important market, and we have to do it really well.
Yeah. And when you look at the portfolio in autos, where do you see yourself? EV hybrids, combustion engines over the next 5 years or so. It seems like you're more aggressive on the EVs than some others.
We are, and we are obviously a large player in combustion engine as well. But we see that transition happening fairly rapidly in India. Hybrid is an area which really has two powertrains in a vehicle, so we don't see that as a game for the long term. If
It
it's
seems expensive. Yeah, a lot of redundancy.
That's right. There is, and that's where so far we've stayed away, but we're ready to step in if that's what customers want. But we really haven't seen that in India as much. Um, and as an example, on three wheelers,
Yeah,
we've essentially gone from 0% electric to 95% electric for our business in the last 3 years. And the industry has gone from 0 to 25% in the last 3 years as well. So there's clearly a very rapid growth in electric three wheelers. It will not be as rapid in four wheelers, but we do expect our business to go from 0% electric to about 30% electric in 3 to 4 years.
yeah. And in the states, those of you who've been to India and China and other countries, the three-wheel carts have all different types of names. It's I always thought they would take off in our cities because they're nice and small. You can kind of get a lot of them in there, but there could be something there to innovate. Which takes us to leadership. How do you get people to think big? Because I know, you're a GE Capital, so you know what you're talking about. You know how to invest wisely, get a return. penetrate markets, get market share, but getting groups and people to think big, I have found that to be challenging because we sometimes put the governor on them in terms of what they actually can do. So, yeah, what's your secret there?
So there are two words that we use. One is audacity, and second is realism. Now, if you would take both, you would rightly say that aren't they opposites in many ways? But the tension between these two words is what enables us to try and get to a place where we can think big, but think big in a way that we can actually deliver what we said we will do. The challenge often comes in when an individual, a leader, or a team feels that if I set a certain goal and I can't meet it, what happens to me? What happens to my career? What happens to my compensation? And that's the balance we've got to be able to achieve for them, to say that first, let's ensure that we're being realistic while we're thinking big as well.
Right.
But if we think big, we're not going to put the people in place, we're not going to put the resources in place to do something. And let me give you an example specifically of our electric three wheeler business, which I just mentioned.
Hmm.
This was a tiny business. We had a 5% share in three wheelers. The business was worth probably $50 million, really a tiny one from the standpoint of our group. And as we looked at it 3 years ago, we said, we see huge potential here. We need to put one of our best leaders here. We need to ensure that the team is very strong, give them all the capital they need, put on the manufacturing they need, and that's going to create a much larger business. Last year, we had IFC and the India Japan Fund investing in that business at a valuation of $800 million. If we had not thought big, we would never put the resources required to be able to create that. And today, we are talking about going from 800 million to $4 billion in terms of how do we grow this business. So,
Well,
what I mean by audacity, but audacity was also based on what we think we can realistically achieve. And that's what we tell people is tomorrow morning we're going to talk about how well are you on track with your plans. So as you talk about your dream and aspiration today, let's make sure that you're going to be realistic enough to be able to give a good answer tomorrow. And therefore it's a combination of both. The other aspect we have to be able to address is that fear of failure. What happens if we fail? And that's one where we've been able to show people that uh, it's okay to do so, not that we would encourage you to do so, but it's okay, and there are going to be other opportunities that you will have as a leader. uh, it's okay if you come in at 90% of plan, and in fact we put our compensation plans in a certain manner where if you have thought big, then you do get the leeway that even at 90% of plan you get compensation as if you met expectations at 100%. And that is important for us because the mindset we have is it's better to come in at 90% of an audacious plan than at 110% of a very low plan.
I love that. But I've never heard a CEO say 90% is okay. We're always like, come on, because we set the goal. It's great to set the goal really high and then understand we're in a range. The other thing I like about your strategy is um, at your size, you're still willing to bring in partnerships, governments, private equity, other companies, competitors. I mean, you have a federation attitude. How is that playing in your strategy of what are you going to do next? Am I going to build something? Am I going to buy it, acquire it, or should I just keep partnering?
For us, for each business, we do what is right for that business. And in a number of cases, we've seen tremendous value from our private equity partners because they've got expertise that sometimes we may not have. And that expertise helps us create a better business. And we've been able to attract the best private equity players in the world, from Temasek to British International Investment to Ontario Teachers, IFC, the India Japan Fund. So that has helped us build these businesses. And we continue to look at them as well as a select group of private equity funds uh, to grow other businesses as well. And similarly, with the government, we partnered with them on auto recycling. We partnered with them on one of our tractor businesses as well in India. And again, we see value in terms of what they bring to the table. So our approach is uh, find the best partners for what we need to achieve, and then bring them on board and work uh, closely with them to be able to achieve it.
Exactly. The Prime Minister Modi is obviously a big fan of your company. I've bumped into him over here at various summits. And how important is it to have your as you can see in the U.S. there's a lot of government interest in the back half of the decade to really drive growth and innovation and investment. And I've seen the same in your country over his administration. Has that helped you a lot?
That has our prime minister is a remarkable person, and I've got
He is.
tremendous respect for him. I had asked his guidance when I'd taken over this role as to what would he suggest I do, and he had basically a number of very insightful comments. But the one thing that he really emphasized was build a world class company that's going to be a global leader, not just a leader in India.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's smart. And if you want to, if you want to head towards let's just say double your business, you want to head towards a $40 billion business with multiple brands. It's that whole partnership strategy. I don't see that in a lot of public companies over here where they're partnering. Everything's under one umbrella. You have some of them that are not in the public portfolio, and you've got a tech player too. You've got Tech Mahindra, which is probably a nice thing to have in your back pocket. How is the tech transformation of a lot of the base businesses, the ones we would call non-tech back in the old days? How's that transformation been going? Has it been a bit challenging, or has it been helping since you're also a tech leader?
This is one of the most important factors that has been behind our growth story, because the key message to all our businesses and leaders is we have to be a tech leader in every industry that we play in, and that every leader has to be a tech leader as well. Uh, in the world that we live in today, technology is transforming the way we do business. It's transforming the experience we can provide to our customers, and therefore there's a tremendous amount of focus on how we can do that. You mentioned Tech Mahindra, and that is clearly a huge advantage for us because it allows us to get the latest technology in multiple sectors, and it's a big advantage for Tech Mahindra in that sense to be able to take those use cases to our customers around the world and tell them that we've tried this out in automobile and tractors, in real estate, in hospitality, and here are some of the results that we've seen, and that is something we can replicate for you. So it's a huge advantage that works for us in many ways.
And when you're looking out on the horizon, what are you feeling are going to be some of your biggest challenges, and looking for strategies on overcoming those? Of course, partnerships is one strategy. It's very good. But yeah, what keeps you up at night, challenge wise?
I think the biggest challenge for us, and frankly, that's growing every day, is how do you deal with things that you don't know are going to happen, uh, and that's where agility becomes a very important factor, to be able to respond to something quickly, to be able to understand that. We had to do that through COVID, when semiconductors suddenly became a big issue, and our auto business was faced with this almost daily crisis on some part not being available. And how do you manufacture an automobile if certain parts are not available? So we worked through that. We found various solutions, and that frankly made our teams a lot more agile. So as we think about what is required uh, from a leadership standpoint, what we tell all our folks is on a foundation of values, we must be bold, agile, and collaborative. We talked about bold earlier and audacity. We talked about agile right now. And collaboration becomes a very important element again to handle crisis, to handle situations that come up, because working closely with various leaders within a business, across businesses we have in the group, and with partners is what enables us to be able to address them uh, in a speedy and an efficient manner.
Yeah, you don't usually see that from a $25 billion company, but the fact that you're broken down into smaller groups, I can't call any of them startups, but agility was taught to certain people who were ready to learn it during COVID. You're right. Some companies it changed them. Others it was just an exercise they went through. Yeah, the challenges ahead are not going to get smaller. How about your own challenges? What what kind of reboots have you been through over the years? You've had quite a career.
So thank you for that. And I've also been lucky to have many mentors along the way that have helped. But I'll highlight one specific reboot. And the seed for this was sown many, many years ago when one of my previous bosses essentially said that the only way to get control is to give up control. And I must admit that I was completely puzzled for a long time.
Right.
Uh, and that was for many years. Uh, and it was when my kids, both boys, um, grew to be teenagers, and my interactions with them changed significantly. And as they got into seventh, eighth, ninth grade, 10th grade in college, in school rather, uh, I had to learn that control was not the word that they appreciated. And I had to learn what it meant to give up control. And as I did that, I found that it was a much better place overall. That we could actually get to better answers, better solutions. I felt much better about things. And as I thought about that in the business situation, I started applying that a little more to many business situations, and in some ways flexing my style where you don't have to control everything. In some cases, there are certain boundaries you establish, a certain trust factors that you establish, and give up control. And especially in leading a group of this size across so many geographies, across so many industries, that has been a huge learning as to where do you get in and get a little more control, where do you give up control, and that's been one of the reboots that I've had.
Yeah, that's a great story. It's a lot less work too when you do that. Having two boys myself, yeah, when they get to their 20s and 30s, it's a whole different it's a whole different ball game. Anish, really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your stories. Any words of wisdom for you guys hire a lot of people, but what types of people are you? Out of this, how does the next generation prepare to come and work for you? What do you want to
Uh,
see?
I'm very optimistic on that, and what we like to see in people is that they love what they do. And that's what we try with each of our associates is to give them the opportunity to do what they love. Because if they do that, they're going to do it well. And we spend a lot of time at work, so it also makes a lot of sense that we should love what we do because that's going to make for a much better life.
Thanks, Anish. Appreciate it. You've been listening to Dr. Anish Shah. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today. Subscribe anywhere you want, on any podcast you get, or at rebootchronicles.com.